It might have been otherwise. Thank you, David, for that beautiful reading. It might have been otherwise. That was a poem written by Jane Kenyon, as David mentioned. And she wrote it after she received a leukemia diagnosis. This illness took her life. And this poem was published a short while later in a collection called Otherwise, New and Selected Poems. Most of them have to do with her facing her end. And the first time I heard it, excuse me, first time I heard it, I was on Star Island. I know many are here in this space that love Star Island and knows that island well. For those of you who don't, it's a Unitarian-Universalist retreat and conference center off the coast of Maine and New Hampshire, just about 10 miles out. And I was lying on the rocks just outside the chapel at morning service. That is where I attend worship, on those rocks. And the minister of the week, Reverend Mara Dowdle, at the time she served in Burlington, Vermont, she read Kenyon's words and then just let them steep like tea. And she offered this stretch of silence to us. And all she said at the top was, "Let us try for a bit of presence now. Try for the here and the now." For this is a poem about presence. Presence with the mundane, those seemingly insignificant moments we pass by and live out all the time and every day. Let us now try for presence now, she said. And I'll speak for myself. In that silence, that day on the rocks, in that silence, was such a surprising comfort. The feel of the rocks under my body, like I'd never felt them before. The sound of the gulls flying over, like I'd never heard them before. My young daughter, who was about 5 at the time, lying next to me. Everything for just a blip took on a bright hue. Do you know this? When you just get present. Not dismal. That was the surprise. Because when I heard the poem at first, I thought, oh, it's like heartbreak. Beautiful, the hue. The bright hue. Thinking back, I know I felt lucky in that brief moment to know that little blip as precious. Lucky me, right? This is the gift of presence, that lucky me feeling. It's why so many practitioners of meditation and yoga and prayer dedicate themselves to it, because it offers peace, a moment of beauty. Wow, lucky me, if only for that blip. And we humans, me included, do not practice this enough, or have absolutely no idea where to begin. Or we do and then we forget. Oh, how we forget. Doesn't make us bad, it just makes us human. But this otherwise piece, it could be otherwise, it will one day be otherwise. This is what Buddhists call impermanence. Impermanence. The only certain truth about this thing called being human that we can 100% rely on. We're always in transition. Always. Nothing ever stays the same. All things go. During every moment of our lives, something is ending and something else is beginning. Right now, winter is ending, and spring is beginning with the spring equinox just a few days away. It's happening all the time, something ending, something else beginning. And Buddhist teachings show us that our work in life is to wake up to or get present to the fleeting, transitory nature of everything, so that you can experience the freshness, that bright hue of every moment. That's the promise. But to do this, to be truly awake to the freshness of every moment and every encounter, you must know it's about its impermanence. That's the kicker of the thing. You must know about its fleeting nature. And to really wrap our minds around the wholeness of this, we need to understand how we humans seem to naturally orient ourselves. It's like a default button, which is to permanence, right? We like things the way we like them. Stay put, we say. Many of us go to great and somewhat ridiculous lengths to wrest consistency and predictability from our lives. And we suffer as a result because nothing wants to stay. It won't stay. We suffer disappointment, frustration, anxiety, resentment, grief. We suffer. And suffering to Buddhists comes from, in part, wanting nothing to change. Wanting nothing to change. The wonderful Buddhist priest Pema Chodron says it this way: despite our lifetime of experience, we're experienced in this, and despite our lifetime of experience with change, something within us never stops insisting on stability. We live in a wondrous flow of birth and death and birth and death. The end of one experience is the beginning of the next experience, which quickly comes to its own end, leading to a new beginning. It's like a river continuously flowing. We know this, but we resist this flow by trying to solidify our experience in one way or another. We try to find something, anything to hold on to, she writes. And the instruction here is to let go. Breathe. The training here is to accustom ourselves, she writes, to existing within this continuous flow, knowing ourselves to be a part of it. Suffering is our struggle against it. Said another way, it's not impermanence that makes us suffer. What makes us suffer is wanting things to be permanent when they're not. And I tell you, this does not come easy to me at all. I could stomp my feet, try as I might. For myself, in my life and in my body, I can feel it in my body when I get stuck in the permanence and wanting things to just stay. I call this gripping tightly. And some of you might know this feeling, right? When you grip so tightly to something. It could be a story or memory in your life. Yours, your own, your family's. So difficult to not grip tightly to that as is. No other way to see it. It could be a place, not wanting a place to change. I can get so gripped there. A house, don't even talk to me about moves or rearranging furniture, right? The time. I made the terrible mistake of putting this watch on my wrist this morning, and I looked at the time before I started preaching and literally was like, we're running late, the time, just so gripped. Punctuality. An expectation. How about you? How you imagine something going at, say, a social gathering or a family affair or a committee meeting, or even out of some justice initiative, right? This is how this should look or happen. And you can feel it in your body, right? A piece of history. A piece of history. That's so hard to look at differently. We know this. We're swimming in these waters now, owning our whole history. Hard. Gets us gripped. I don't know about you, but I can also put a death grip on how my body should feel, right? It should feel strong. It should feel rested, free of pain and anxiety, like it's some kind of machine that if I only program correctly and fuel in some way, it will function in the ways I can predict and depend upon. And I suffer because I'm consistently let down by this dear body, which I don't call dear all the time. Yes, and I hope we can laugh at this. It's good. We must keep laughing at this gripping that we all do. All of our insistence on keeping things the way they are or expecting that they should be, it makes cat herders of us all, and it's funny. As are most, if not all, of our insistences on some kind of formula for life or people or ideologies or faiths as being static and within our finite, well-planned, predicted grasps. There is hilarity in this, and we have to keep our humor, or we risk becoming brittle in spirit or way, way, way too serious for this thing called life. You are wise when you say life is fragile. It's unfathomable. It's unpredictable. Life's subtitle we can all agree on is it could be otherwise, and one day it will be otherwise. And you are wise to know this is the most vulnerable of truths. Our theme this month is the path of vulnerability, and yes, this is one of those most vulnerable of truths, that one day it will be otherwise. And I've considered a lot for a long time about why this is such a vulnerable thing, this impermanence and change and otherwiseness. Why we grip so tightly and why I can grip so tightly. And I sense it comes down to the very real fear of loss. Mourning, grief, pain. This is painful, right? Loss. For myself, I feel that underneath all the places I grip tightly against is this fear of losing something. Part of my identity, my youth, comfort, familiarity, loss of something I want or think is right, dreams, hopes, the familiar, loss of control. It's scary. These are not easy things to feel. These are the great and ever-present griefs of our lives. They're all around us, and how few of us want to talk about it. Because it's scary. Because it's scary. And this is what I want to turn to in these last few minutes here, which is the dignity of good mourning, M-O-U-R-N, mourning. Good mourning. This is what spiritual community puts our minds in touch with or wakes us up to, this human experience of holding on and letting go, being knitted into the fabric of an ecosystem in flux, and attempting to create presence and meaning within it, within its flow and good morning. That's what we do here. That's what church is for. This is what our Unitarian-Universalist faith, which is a living, moving, flowing tradition, is asking of us and is helping us with in belief, in action, in being. Good morning means we become good hosts to it all and trust that our sanctuary can hold it all, not unlike the great Sufi poet Rumi's wise teaching. This being human is a guest house. This sanctuary is a guest house. Welcome it all in. And when we open ourselves to this allness and give good morning the dignity it deserves, our grips are loosened. You can feel it. Our shoulders relax, our jaws maybe unclench a bit. We remember that we have breath in our bodies and a heartbeat. What are those things? To be planted in the present. Planted in the present. And I tell you that when we are ungripped and here, really here, my friends, we're better able to identify that underlying fear. What's the fear here? Know it as valid and also bless and release it. We get to bless and release our anxieties. We're able to cultivate compassion for our grief, and through doing this, we offer compassion to our grieving fellows. We become good hosts to others' griefs. We're better able to pause and listen to one another because we've practiced offering pause and a listening ear to ourselves. These are the life-saving, life-changing, world-healing benefits of getting intimate with the depths of who we are and all that we fear and mourn, and practice saying, this is how I am today. This is what scares me. This is what I grieve. And then we become the light bearers of this out in the world, transmitting it to everyone we meet, for it is contagious. It is contagious. As we know, the opposite is contagious as well. We know that too. And I encourage you to hold all this close, however it's swimming around in you, as you continue to do the work of welcome that our eighth principle calls us towards, because this has to have a place in this. Grief and good mourning and loss and presence and breath. How do we live and breathe welcome? Our eighth principle asks us, so that we might be spiritually whole, it promises us. And as I said earlier during announcements, a survey is going to be in your email boxes this afternoon that asks for just a blip of your time. And as you answer these questions being put forward about all that hangs on your walls, the stories they come with, the hands that hung them, the symbols of our church, notice what's going on in your body. What's the fear? Where are you getting gripped? This touches all perspectives, and we get to have a lot of perspectives. But be present to them and know why they're happening in yourself. That's the ask. And the invitation is, can you loosen just a bit inch a bit closer to what's really going on, because there's really good and important mourning that's happening. And it's what makes this beautiful work of collective liberation magnificent. Magnificent. The wholeness of human experience is always a magnificent thing. A welcome is always a magnificent thing. And so in closing, I want to offer you the gift that Reverend Laura gave us on the rocks at Star Island all those years ago. I'm going to reread Jane Kenyon's Otherwise, and after I'm done, we're just going to steepen it a bit. And during this silence, I hope you'll breathe. Maybe hear one another breathe and rejoice in this blessed moment together here in our sanctuary. Otherwise, by Jane Kenyon. I got out of bed on 2 strong legs. It might have been otherwise. I ate cereal, sweet milk, ripe, flawless peach. It might have been otherwise. I took the dog uphill to the birchwood. All morning I did the work I love. At noon I lay down with my mate. It might have been otherwise. We ate dinner together at a table with silver candlesticks. It might have been otherwise. I slept in a bed in a room with paintings on the walls and planned another day just like this day. But one day, I know it will be otherwise. This precious human life, so fragile, so powerful. Bless us all that we reach its full meaning, and that along the way we know its beauty and its ugliness, its great joys and good mornings, and that in some way, we welcome it all in and be good hosts to it all. Be good hosts to one another. Be good hosts to ourselves. And I say to you, amen.